Workshop meeting started. Today is Wednesday, February 11th. We are at Washington City Hall in the council chamber. We have 3 items on our agenda. Council, I'll turn to you for a motion to approve the agenda as outlined.
So made, Mayor.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Ivy, second by Councilman Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. First item of business is from our good friends with the Washington County Fair Board. I understand Ruffin Judd and Susie Lafayette will give us an update and some exciting information about what to expect. Hi,
Yes,
Susie.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Thad. I don't know if you've had these packets, but Ruffin just brought them to Councilman Belliston. Just a little, just some messaging that we want to share with you from our commissioners about the county fair, and that the county fair is the longest running county event, over 165 years in Washington County. And we're really proud of that, not only that tradition, but that legacy.
Now, Susie, I hope you're going to share just a little bit more on that. If not, I'm going to have to interject.
Of the history.
The Washington County Fair.
Yes, it was started in Washington City, because at the time it was the county seat. Thank you, John D. Lee. And it was started in his home. You thought you were going to trick me, huh, Mayor?
I'm just testing you. I didn't want to have to say it, so I'm glad you are.
Here, where Dixie began,
Yes.
in Washington City, is where also the Washington County Fair started, with John D. Lee in his quote-unquote mansion, as they called it, his home.
The John D. Lee and then Robert Covington there together.
Yes, right there at that time. And they wanted a place where people could bring their leather and their goods and kind of showcase everything that they had to offer at that time. And if you go to our website, there's a history of it, but it talks about how the days were long, it was hot, and I appreciate the heat, having done a county fair in August, and then I appreciate it even better when we don't have the heat after moving it to April. So
Yes.
There's a lot of really cool history with the county fair. F.L. Daggett, who at one time in about 1919, he was kind of everything in the county. He was an assessor, he was an attorney, he was a commissioner, he was a judge. But at one time, the county fair was going to go away, and he said, "Let there be a fair." And we have had a fair ever since, and we're very thankful that it has evolved and moved and adapted. And from Washington to St. George to Hurricane, where it is currently, it is, again, more than an event, it's a legacy. It's a place where our local businesses can showcase their talents of whatever services they provide. It's one of, again, like I said, the largest opportunities for businesses to showcase their wares, as well as our local talent. You all know that we have enormous talent, lots of great bands and dance groups and vocalists, and this is a time where they can come to the fair because we love having local entertainment on 3 different stages. Just some really fun numbers. I already mentioned it's the longest running event in the county, but this last year we had over 50 unique retail vendors that participate at the county fair. 38 different bands are featured, 23 unique performing groups on our different stages throughout the 8 days. More than 2,000 locals, quilts, art, fine arts, home arts were entered into the county fair, and every single item that is entered, the county gives back cash. So not only do you get a ribbon, but you also get cash when you turn in your items. And we've paid out over $16,000 last year to our residents when they bring in their items to showcase. We love having our youth on property during the county fair, and we always do 4th grade field trips. Those that go to Staley Farm in November for farm field days, and the other half of the 4th graders that don't go to Staley Family Farm, they come to the county fair. And last year we had 1,121 4th graders on property during the 3 days, where they learned how to milk a cow, and they learned that chocolate milk doesn't come from a brown or chocolate cow. We teach them where wool comes from and how they get clothes. We teach them also how to eat better through our Create Better Health and that program. And then this year they're going to actually watch pig racing, which will be really fun for them. But we are super proud of our field trips. This year, we're celebrating, like many of you, and here in Washington City, America's 250. So we will have our Colonial Village at the Washington County Fair. We'll also have fifth grade field trips through the Give Me Liberty program that will be on property, learning more about our American heritage, our country, and that legacy. And then finally, the Washington County Fair is part of our mission statement. We hope that we are honoring the past and showcasing the present and inspiring the future. And again, it's more than an event. It's really a legacy and really a tradition for us and hopefully our residents and our citizens here in Washington County. One fun fact, I'm going to say it before Ruffin gets to say it. As part of America's 250, we are having free admission at the county fair. We want everyone to come and celebrate. I know your jaw dropped, Kurt. So did mine. But to help celebrate America's 250, we are encouraging all of our residents to come to the county fair at no cost, so they can enjoy our entertainment and they can enjoy our local agriculture that we have that comes to the fair and our exhibits, and they can come back multiple times throughout the 8 days, April 10th through the 18th. I want to introduce you to Ruffin Judd. He's one of our board members. He's going to talk a little bit about some things that we hope Washington City can help us with.
Thanks, Suze. I've been a part of this fair board for a couple of years, and the amount of effort that goes into it is awesome. You guys know planning your cotton days and other events here too, so you kind of have an idea. But we're really hoping to showcase our local communities, our cities, some of our townships, other places that are part of what makes Washington County great. So I come kind of with an ask, as well as probably, hopefully, some coordination of a way that we can communicate, or we can work with Washington City to get a display for Washington City there at the county fair. You've done them in the past. It's nothing new. We'd just like to be able to know who to best liaison with and what we can do to help support setting up that display to really showcase the Washington City heritage and the future of the city. So that's kind of our ask. We also were looking for feedback from you guys as far as what you've seen or noticed that has gone on or has not been good or bad. I know we've received some from
Councilman Ivy.
Councilman Ivy. Mr. Ivy, yeah, Mr. Ivy, in the past, and we really are hopefully welcoming any other additional feedback, suggestions, things that you guys have noticed that we can do to help improve the fair, but also, make it a safe and a fun environment, especially where we have this year with everybody being allowed to come, it being a free event, and hopefully getting more people involved. I will say this, we always mention cash prizes because we all like cash. Well, the movie theaters don't take it anymore, so. But we are going to be giving out a People's Choice Award as well as a Fair Director Award for the best display for the city. So
Okay.
I'm gonna put Washington City up against all the other cities out there and see who can come up with the best display, and hopefully get the most people there so they can vote for you too, so.
Is it like a seed display? One of those that they used to do?
Yeah, we used to do the seed displays. We don't have the platforms for them anymore. We kind of took those off because the storage of it was such, but really anything, a lot of cities do we have Santa Clara that does their Swiss days. They've brought those big cows before. We've had people that, just do simple pictures from the past. We also have one city like literally just pulls off some of the pictures on the wall in their office building, brings them and sets them on some easels. So really just kind of leave it up to you guys. But if there's some way we can help, with some ideas even, happy to do that as well. So.
We are happy to participate with the display. I will get you the contact for that. But council, your interaction, your feedback with these individuals about the county fair.
I love the fair, so I'm excited, and I like the fact that it's in April now because August was kind of hot. So
We do too.
yeah,
It kept me from going for a lot of years. And
yeah,
I
That's
should
awesome.
be used to it by now. So.
yeah, good.
Awesome. And really, there's a number of ways to contact us, but if you do have any, don't hesitate to reach out via email, call us, whatnot. We really are looking forward to partnering better with the cities that make up our county and make it a better place. So
Wonderful. Additional feedback?
You know, I just like to say that I had a few years that I helped out with the county fair, and I really enjoyed it. I learned how much work goes into it. Susie, you do a great job.
Thank you.
I don't think anyone else in the world could do it. You do a great job, and you manage everything so well. But, you know, those few years that I was there, I realized that it's not just our county. People travel far and wide to come to our fair. And I agree, the date was a great inspiration to change. And it was great to have that secondary road that goes through, you know, by the landfill. That was a great thing. So, no, I just really appreciate your board and everything you do for our county. I love the fact that we're trying to remember our history, our heritage, and it's on display there every year. So I really appreciate the fair and everything that you guys do.
We did research 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago we did? And about just over 25% of the people that come to the county fair are from out of the area. So we have quite a large showing from those people just coming to visit, you know, adding an additional part to their trips down here or whatnot. So
Wonderful. Council, anything else? Again, a couple of things. It was our honor to host the county fair parade for a few years when life got crazy and everything got locked down during COVID. We are freedom-loving people here in Washington City, so we kept it open, and it was our privilege to host that parade for those years. And we hope that you found a good spot for that to land. Unfortunately, just with the opening of our Main Street interchange, it just dumps too much traffic, so we've had to just cut that back to just 2 or 3 parades per year, just because of the impact it is on our police and our staff. And then also, so for the last 4 years, Jordan Hess, Legislative Affairs Director, he has put on that display there, and I'm confident he will be willing and ready. I'm thinking of like a Where Dixie Began kind of themed, you know, if this is a competition, we'll be in the game, so.
nice. You guys have the upper leg already because we like you. So
Yeah.
they say that out loud.
Not just saying that.
Well, we appreciate you. It's a wonderful event. It does bring a large local and part of the population out, and some from other places. And we like that you share the name with Washington City, and Washington County. You guys do a great job, and we appreciate you. We'll be involved. And do we have involvement there, a liaison, or does Councilman Ivy been involved with that in the past, or do we just
in the past.
just communication with us directly? All right, just keep us posted, and we'll.
And we'll send out more emails too. But if we have that one specific person that we can say, hey,
Yeah, Jordan Hess. He's handsome gentleman there with
sounds
the
good.
plaid shirt in the back
I'll get
there.
in touch with Jordan, and then hopefully we can relay anything that needs to come to you guys through that. So.
Thanks, Ruffin. Thanks, Susie. Appreciate you guys. Next item of business is the Washington Dome study. I'll invite our Assistant Leisure Services Director, Paul Walker, to come up along with Thomas McMurdy with, is it Avenue Consultants, correct? All right, gentlemen.
Yeah, good afternoon. We came to the council, I think, last spring to introduce the Washington Dome study. We got some grant money from the Utah Division of Outdoor Recreation to kind of look at the Washington Dome, kind of see what we could use it for, what's the best use for that with all the development coming in around it. And we spent a lot of time with Avenue Consultants and city staff and the BLM having steering committee meetings throughout the year, and this is kind of the culmination of that. So we'll turn the time over to Thomas, and we'll be here for any questions you guys may have.
Wonderful.
Sure, awesome. Council, good evening. I do have a slide presentation that's up on the monitors. It's about 20 slides or so. Feel free to, interrupt or ask any questions, because I wanted to specifically show you a lot of the feedback that we got from the public, your constituents, and what we heard in doing the feasibility study on the dome, and then get to kind of the final results, that type of thing. So just to kind of start, our Washington Dome study area is shown here on the map to just kind of give you a sense. So it's really just the dome. one thing I would point out here is the vast majority of the land is BLM land. And so BLM played a critical partner in this study. They came with a bunch of their resources, as well as, the city had a bunch of, Eldon and Jordan and Mayor, you were there, a bunch of city members were a part of the study as well. On the south part of the study area, there are there's private land there. And so we wanted to make sure that we reached out and tried to communicate with them as well. But just to kind of give you a sense of like the study area for the dome and what we were kind of like looking at and working with as part of the study. We began, we began last spring, and then one of the first things we did was kind of like develop a vision and goals so that we knew what we were doing with the feasibility study. Like, what are we setting out to do? And our vision was to expand recreational opportunities and amenities on Washington Dome. That's kind of like what we wanted to accomplish. And then we had 3 goals, and that was to develop a trails and access plan jointly kind of with public input. And that's why I wanted to show you all the public input and what we heard from them. Then we wanted to vet any recommendations we might have with a full steering committee made up largely of Washington City and BLM. Greater Zion, Leslie participated as well. And then the last thing was we wanted to give you guys enough information that developed cost estimates so that the idea of this plan it's not a commitment to do this, but it's the idea of like to give you guys a path going forward, to set this where you can like bring it directly into your Parks and Trails plan, or at least give you the guidance of what you need to do for like the next steps to like advance the study. And so those were kind of the goals of what we wanted to do. And I believe we accomplished all 3 of those things. The first goal was really about kind of like getting information and vetting it with the public. So we wanted to make sure we did kind of outreach early and then throughout the study and then at the end as well. And so we tried to do both in-person and online outreach. Our in-person outreach started at last year's Cotton Days Festival. And then we also did a series of one-on-one meetings, I think like 9 to 12. They were at specifically targeted groups. So for example, we met with HOAs of like the homes in the area. We met with Suba mountain biking people. We met with backcountry horsemen for people who might have equestrian uses on there. We met with ATV groups. We met with the gentleman who has grazing allotments on the BLM land. So we really kind of, those one-on-one meetings were about, targeted stakeholders. And then we ended with a fall event in the park where we had kind of, the plan put together. Online, our target was to build a website that is still up. It's washingtondome.com. And to do a community survey and hear from a broader, the broader community that way. And then we also had kind of a comment map where people could give us specific comments throughout the study. So that was kind of our focus for the outreach. These are some photos from the Cotton Days last year. So last April, we were out there talking to people and asking them about the dome. One thing that was interesting to me is the board on the right. We asked, do you use Washington Dome for recreation? And 75% of the stickers that people placed there were no. So there's a real opportunity here, right? A lot of your residents want to get out and recreate. We kind of saw that, but many of them aren't doing that on the dome. So it does represent, an asset, an amenity, an opportunity for people. This was the website that we built, the WashingtonDome.com. Again, you can go there and still see things. We had a community survey that we published and then we managed online. We ended up getting over 200 responses to the survey, which we were pretty pleased with. Our goal was to get to about 100, and we ended up with about 200. We did the survey kind of over the summer. I've got a few of those results to show you. The full results you can kind of see in the study, but one thing we asked is like, well, what recreational activities are you doing on the dome? Is it just for, hiking? And then you can see that we had about 20% of respondents did some motorized recreation, but the vast majority was hiking and mountain biking. And then the others, you can see the 10% said other. The vast majority of those simply said like trail running or walking a dog. They were still like pedestrian activities, like, active movement activities. One of the big things we wanted to kind of hear from the public is what do they want? And so we asked it a couple ways, and one of them was, what would make your visit to Washington Dome more enjoyable? Like if you go out there to recreate, like what could we do to make it better? And the number one thing was just designated trails. That you can see it on the far right. And then adjacent with that is the trail loop. So having a singular kind of trail loop was something that was really desired. as well as just more designated trails. And you can see the other things that people voted for, wayfinding, parking areas, restrooms, and then those who said other, I listed a couple of them on there, on some of the comments that we got from the people who wrote other, including, having water stations, talking about the steepness of the trails and making them maybe more accessible and keeping motorized activities off of the dome. And that was something that we heard several times. And so, like, here are just a couple of quotes and that we kind of heard from just people. You could write whatever you want, what would make it more enjoyable. You can see stabilizing steep trails and kind of making it more accessible, restricting motorized vehicles, an area, the top one, an area that you can drive to so that you can get there, right? So if you don't live in the neighborhood, how do you actually get to and then recreate on the dome? And then you can see that person also mentioned trailheads, trees, restrooms, parking lots, all of the amenities that you need to like really make it like a great park and not just, just a trail. And then of course there were some that had other thoughts. You can see that one on the bottom right that just said, please leave it natural. And so they didn't want to draw lots and lots of people to the dome. So, we got a good kind of representation from people in terms of, what they want to see. We didn't want to overlook the idea of impact. So if people were like, hey, we don't want this here, we want them to give them an opportunity to voice any potential impacts. Hey, this is going to be impactful. So we asked, how might this be impactful to you? Specifically, thinking about all of the homes that are there kind of, on the west side of the dome. But you can kind of see from this graph, the vast majority basically said that there is no impact. 28% literally said no impact. 15% said like NA, like they just, like there isn't any available. 12 that said other were basically all like none, no. And then the impacts that people did identify, again, which is less than 50%, were just some litter, some trash, and then a few identified noise as well. And then the vehicles parked in my neighborhood were kind of a smaller percentage as well. I will tell you, oftentimes giving the people an opportunity to vent or to complain is usually, people like to do that, and so you usually end up with lots of responses that are like, oh, this is going to be bad or impactful. The fact that less than 50% of the responses mentioned an impact at all, I thought was incredibly positive. That people largely see this as just beneficial and not, there's no real negative. Then we worked through the summer with all that input to kind of put together the plan. We brought it back out to the community, specifically in the park, to kind of look at this. At this point, we had kind of a final plan of like where the trail is going to be and how we can kind of address it. And we had a bunch of other people come, and then they provided some final input on the exact plan and what we needed to get to. And that allowed us to like, make some final adjustments. So that's kind of like a lot of what we heard. Now let me just kind of show you like the final plan. If you asked me in like a single picture, great, show me the plan. This is it. This is kind of like our final map and list of exactly what we would recommend in terms of trails and amenities, including trailheads, parking lots, some viewpoints, benches. You should see them as picnic tables, but really you can think about it as just being a bench to rest. Including like a fully interconnected soft surface trail system and a ridgeline trail. That ridge trail is something that was really important. It kind of exists today. People are up there. It's a key element of people who want to recreate on the dome. And then another really key element is the green kind of paved loop around the base. That paved loop is designed to follow about the same contour, so it doesn't have a lot of grade changes. It kind of goes in and out, kind of being as flat as possible. And then we've put together a detailed project list with our assumptions. I would just mention, if you look at this, you're like, oh, wow, there's 19 projects, it's $5 million. This is not a commitment. I think about this as being like a 30-year plan, something to like work towards, for a long time to come, just like part of a master plan that we can like slowly build to in terms of like the plan. A few other details just to kind of give you a sense. That green loop that kind of goes around the base of the dome, we designed to be a trail like this. We looked at 10 feet fully paved and at 2 to 5 feet of clearance on either side, right? So that you clear probably 20 feet of land that you'd have to like clear and grade, and then you pave a 10-foot trail. There's some complications that'll naturally come with this, including some bridges or little things. We ended up following the contour kind of around the mountain. And then we have a general cost estimate, and that is specific to you here in this area of about $760,000 a mile to kind of build that. And it's about 5 miles. It's a little bit more, just over 5 miles to kind of build that loop. But there's a few other kind of paved connections to where, we show parking lots and people need to kind of get to. And then we have soft surface trails that we plan kind of throughout. We followed the best practices for how we do this, including cross slopes and drainage. I'll show you on a subsequent slide. We looked at exactly how many rain events we have up there and how we can accommodate for water so that if we do implement nicer trails, that they can be maintained or they don't get washed away. And so, we looked at that in terms of how we would do that. These soft surface trails, they accommodate mountain bikes. I'm showing a jogger, but it's pretty standard mountain biking trail for the cyclists who would be out there. And then we put this all together in a packet, in a report that you can kind of see. We tried to make it as easy to follow and understand. I will tell you, our goal was to kind of keep it at about 40 pages and just get kind of the correct stuff. I think it ended up being about 50, but we have very clear outcomes. We've put together like a lot of pictures and drawings and like clear pathways for what we want to do, including like capturing the existing conditions and what's already out there and ways we want to move things forward. We did a lot with BLM to look at their grazing allotments, the fencing, the rights that they kind of have. We also, I'll show you on like the next slide, looked at any teeny species. There's a sandpaper plant out there that they kind of observe and monitor. We looked at that, how that might impact our trails. I mentioned we looked at precipitation. This graph in the upper right are the exact number of days that have noticeable precipitation on Washington Dome over the last 9 years. Trace amounts has to be at least 1/100th of an inch to even register. And besides this, we also looked at major rain events. I mean, like 1/100th of an inch is not going to impact the soils too much, but if we had like an inch, then it would. And so we looked at all those, and there was very few of those ultimate rain events, but that was something that we considered. You can see our contour map. We took all of the feedback from the people into consideration. We put together an infographic for what we kind of heard, and then everything that we kind of met with everybody. Did a kind of exhaustive trail planning, both with the contours and the slopes. We matched this to other areas, including the Bear Claw Poppy in Washington County, South Mountain in Arizona, to make sure that we're getting the right balance of trails for population and the grades, as well as, that they would be not all black diamond. Like we looked at like how the trails were individually rated, whether they're like green or blue. All of that stuff kind of went into it. Here's that sandpaper plant there in the middle. We did 3D elevations, just to give you a sense of like all of the work that kind of went into coming up with the plan. We didn't want to overlook amenities. We looked specifically at like how we do signage, trails, bathrooms. In fact, in the upper right, there's a rendering of a parking lot with just a simple toilet, bench, and wayfinding sign on the mountain. That's just an AI rendering of what it could look like. That would we could kind of put on the north side and connect to trails. We've got an amenities plan that also has a separate dollar amount for those things. In $20-25 as best we could guess, to just kind of give us a sense of like what do the public really need to be able to recreate out there and take a look. We've put the entire final plan together. This is it. I just wanted to show you, if you haven't been to, I wonder if this will show. Oh, maybe wait 1 second. If I pull this over, will it? No. Well, I was just going to pull up the website and say, if you go to WashingtonDome.com right now, we've pulled down the information and we just have the final report. So if you go there, you can click. Anybody can go get the final report. You can download it. You can take a look at it. It's available to the public. Yeah, we're really pretty pleased with how it came about in terms of the final feasibility plan. And kudos to you, Mayor, for participating, as well as your whole staff. They have been great to work with. I will tell you, we could not have done this without the help of all of your staff in terms of the feedback and getting the public involved and all that stuff.
Well, and I appreciate that, Thomas, and you and your team and your expertise, but I also want to recognize, I think Trista's here with the county. They were a big part of everything, and also, we had multiple members of the Bureau of Land Management that were right involved there, so it was really a collaborative effort, and certainly Councilman Casperson's part of that, Trails Committee, so she's been a big part of it. Council, questions, feedback for the engineer, the staff member here on this. This is the time to vet it and talk about it and give some direction.
I just have
with respect to the private property owners that are there, how did those conversations go? And did you, I mean, because there would have to be land acquisition to do this, right?
Maybe, not necessarily. There's ways to have, easements and agreements that aren't actual acquisition.
Well, but it cuts them, I mean, it essentially cuts them off from the use of their land too.
It might. So I will tell you, the paved trail, one of the things that we looked at and worked on was if there was any potential development in the private land. And I had one of the maps showed the developable land and the area that's above 2,933 feet, where basically there's no water. It's above all the water tanks.
Because the gravity feed
That's
for
right,
the
yeah.
tanks.
And so it's been identified by the city as kind of like undevelopable, and that's where we put kind of that paved trail, kind of followed that contour. So it was above kind of the developable land. It does go through private property kind of on the south, and so yeah, it would take some additional effort to like work through that, whether it's through acquisition or kind of easements, or the trail could simply stop. In fact, in the area, we looked at having the soft surface trail that was kind of like higher, that could exist, so you could still kind of complete the loop. In fact, I imagine that the paved trail, like if you were to work towards this, that's the type of thing that you would do piecemeal over like years, almost like the Jordan River Trail that they built up in Salt Lake County. It took lots of years to kind of work through building like a mile here and it disjointed and a mile here, and then kind of making that connection. I suspect that you might have a similar process.
On your proposed trails map that you show, the paved and unpaved trails, what trails are there currently right now?
Yeah, there is a map of existing trails. That existing trails map, we looked at kind of the scars on the land, because if you look at an aerial, you can kind of see, there was kind of scars here and here and here. But we actually use the All Trails app, which is kind of like the dedicated, yeah, it's that one on the far right. Those are the existing trails. Oh, sweet, thank you. And so like that Ridgeline Trail is there today, people can walk it. It's almost like a two-track. There's like old kind of ATV or side-by-side kind of ruts that are kind of through there. There are several others that exist out there where there's like, you can kind of see tracks, but these trails that you see on the far right, these orange ones, those are the ones that are designated, that you can get from the All Trails app, that it tells hikers to go and use, are those trails. We looked at preserving many of those, specifically that Ridgeline, which is critical. Others of those aren't really sustainable. They're too steep. They're not in the right place. They don't follow like good trail practices. And so we've cleaned those up.
Yeah, when we met with the BLM, they were really helpful. The feedback we got from them is just because a trail's there doesn't mean it needs to stay there. They said, take this opportunity to build the best trail system possible. Many of those trails, as Thomas says, were created by ATV riders or something, and so they're not good for pedestrian uses. So part of what the BLM said is, if you need a trail in this area, just because one's there doesn't mean you maintain it. We can make a trail that works better for multiple users.
So, Paul, with the BLM, what is the steps with the BLM? Because usually they take a long time to get anything through them. So what's the steps on this type of process?
So
with the master plan?
We had a couple options with the BLM that we didn't get too far into. We can RP&P this land, or we can develop it with partnership of the BLM. With both those processes, we would need to do an environmental study. And so that's the next thing we're looking at is, depending on the feedback we get from this, we'll use this plan to apply for grant money to do an environmental study. That would be the next step.
Well, did you already apply for that money?
We've looked into applying. We've talked with the Utah Division of Outdoor Recreation. They have another ROI, Outdoor Recreation Initiative grant that we've looked into, and we've done some stuff with them. We wanted to get feedback from the council before we bid off something like that. So we're kind of in the middle of that process right now.
That's great. I just have a couple comments and questions. I like the paved trail around, like, plus or minus as you design that, it can be figured out. And I think I mentioned it last time, and I can't remember what I mentioned was the restrooms. They're just the vault restrooms that are more BLM style, but it seemed like they're heavy on the north and none on the south. Is there a reason for that? Is that,
Yeah.
and it's just my experience with trails is it's nice to have a restroom when you start. right? If you start on the north, that's great, but there's nowhere really to start. The one restroom's across from Long Valley, but I don't think there's a crossing across the parkway, like, so I don't know if it's more beneficial to move one of those to the south area. I don't know, I'm just thinking starting locations, people like to use the restroom before they get out and
Yeah,
recreate.
Councilman, it's a good comment. That's the type of thing that, as we put together kind of a draft plan, what actually gets built like years from now, we'll adjust quite a bit.
Yeah.
Even like the trail locations themselves, we kind of did our best based on what we had, but we didn't survey it. There's no actual topo. We didn't do soil samples. And so as they get into like environmental and you get into like engineering, inevitably there's going to be adjustments. There's a real opportunity to continue to look at the south. One of the things that there was a lot of question of was the majestic tanks. There's also a question of, do we include this motorized area? That area, like the whole south side, is probably, there's an opportunity to revisit it.
I like the idea of the loop trail. I think that's a good paved trail. I think it's good. I like the plan. I really did. That was one thing that caught me, and then it didn't seem like there was a lot of connectivity to the south. So, and again, like you said, it's a start. It's a working plan, right? It's not a total done deal. As we work through this, that's one thing. We have our Wills Park and stuff down there. I want connectivity with a paved trail to get somehow to this, not have it off. Because I look at these paved trail accesses, which are good on the northwest, but they're just to residential neighborhoods, right? Like there's not, which is good for all those residents, but we have a lot of residents to the south and very little residents to the north. Except, I guess we have Long Valley that would have to go to the interchange. So maybe not two or something. So those are just things that I'm
That's a good comment.
evaluating and looking at. And then I know, Paul, we talked about, we are working on this currently isn't in our impact fee master plan, but we'd have to maybe evaluate that with our next update and how we manage that.
Yeah, so we are planning on updating the Parks and Trails master plan this budget year. So that's something the timing works out really well for this to be added.
On this, so far we haven't spent anything, right? Because other than some time, because it's been with the Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant. But can you just talk long-term, and it does help me get some perspective when Thomas, you explained that this is a long-term project. But certainly from my standpoint, I've been to areas in Nevada and Arizona where there are prominent landmarks like this that they have preserved and protected and then found a way to implement appropriate recreation. And I think this is very, what's the opposite of short-sighted? I think I don't know if visionary is the right word, but I think we'll be smart to be looking ahead and planning for the future in protecting this area. But that was a long way to get to my question, was how do we pay for this over time other than impact fees? I mean, I know that, like I say, the county's been a great partner and is starting to step up, and this is certainly something that would be very beneficial countywide. Are there some creative ways that we can do this without, footing the bill?
As we stated, the Division of Outdoor Recreation, they have a whole series of grants. And the unique thing about some of their planning grants is there's no match. So this one, the grant we got for this project, the grant we will apply for the environmental study will have no match. So the city won't have to outlay any funds until we are prepared to build some trails. At that point, impact fees would be used, but also we would continue to ask for grants from the Division of Outdoor Recreation. They've got grants specifically for trails. TRT, the county's been a great partner for these type of projects, so we would continue to reach out for other grants to make our impact fee funds go as far as they can.
Forward thinking was the word, by the way.
And I like what they've said is that, we have a list of all these projects, but it doesn't all have to be done at once either, right? Like you could do, okay, we're gonna bid off half the paved trail this, we're gonna do the west side versus the east, and then work toward things. And when we look at our impact fee, we don't need that. We don't need any more impact fees unless we need them to. Parks is a hard one, right? Because those are wants, but needs at the same time.
Very expensive. The impact fee already is quite high.
Pretty high, right? So we have to look at our other needs in the city as well. So again, hope when we do our impact fee study, it's not, hey, we're just gonna throw this whole project in at one. But when you look at the cost of this versus a potential park, I mean, parks are 4 to 5 million. It's like building a whole park just in a long area.
Just to add, I've spoke with staff about this and the costs that they have here, according to some of the staff members, that these are underestimated costs, that once you get up there and what, you know, how the trails are and everything up there, it could be a lot more than this. And I've talked to Paul a little bit about different options of maybe not doing all of these trails, because I feel like people are already enjoying the dome as it is, and there's no cost to the city, because that's another consideration, is the future maintenance costs, you know, the yearly costs, and then if we even have the equipment to be able to get up there and to maintain, you know, trails like this. And so with Paul, he was talking about, well, I guess, can you talk about maybe the trail, doing a paved trail, how we discussed maybe from Long Valley to connect it to like this, wasn't it the Star Valley? You want to do, maybe talk about doing maybe a paved trail from there that would have that connectivity kind of from the
Yeah.
skating park.
The great thing about this plan is we can take whatever parts of this plan we want. I think the canal trail is like a good example. That's 7 miles long. We've done it in several projects. We've gotten grants for that. We've had great partners. So this, I think if we had maybe we start with one side of the paved trail, we have a gravel parking lot to maintain access, like that could be an easy place to start, to maintain some connections between some of these neighborhoods and between some of the existing natural surface trails, and a place for people to access it. I think that would be like a great start, and it would be a fraction of the cost of the entire project. But we could have something like that, and we could build on from that, or maybe that's sufficient.
Yeah, because then you're maintaining access for people to continue to enjoy it, but
Yeah.
then we're not adding, you know, continual cost to the city. And then I feel like this is something that's been done, when you look at the Red Cliffs Reserve, there's usually just a parking lot, and then you can go and enjoy at different points, you know, different access points.
Yeah.
There's just a parking lot, and then you go and explore.
Yeah, that's
I
a great point at Trailhead, and some wayfinding would be a great start.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. They do a good job of wayfinding, right? And keep people on the right path, and some of the old four-wheeler trails, they kind of block off. And those are fairly inexpensive things you can do, but I agree, don't put a lot of money into maybe improving some of these trails unless there's like a section that needs to be redone or something. But I like where you're going with it. I think it's a good to keep it down. We want it to be enjoyable, and we want it as natural, and every time you take any equipment up there, it's hard to keep it natural.
Good comments, good common sense approach, biting off more than we can chew. But I agree that having that long-term 20, 30-year plan, and then just having that vision to be forward-thinking and, you know, preserve that, and, you know, kind of protect from the additional scarring, because it does have some natural beauty in its own way. But it's good conversation. Council, anything else? Councilman Bellison, Councilman Henderson, anything else to add on this? Councilwoman Casperson, Councilman Ivy, anything else on the conversation?
No, I appreciate the information. It's something that, like I said, it's gonna take a minute to kind of really understand what's needed and what we can afford and what's available for funds for us. But I do really appreciate the conversation. These are things that we can't overlook. You know, they have to be dealt with now so that we actually preserve them however we choose to do. At least we're having the conversation, so I appreciate it.
Well said.
Mayor, can I?
Councilman
I
Henderson,
was
go
just
ahead.
gonna say, your presentation and the stuff that was in the packet that I read through, it was really nice, really simple, user-friendly, understandable, so great job on that. I thought it was really, really well done, so thank you.
So I think what I'm hearing from the council, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing that we like this overall concept, but we don't want to go crazy. We don't want to spend a lot of money. We don't want to cause ourselves a lot of ongoing costs in terms of maintenance and things, but we recognize that it does make sense to protect and preserve that area and to implement some recreation and just kind of define where that goes. Council, do we have your support to give Paul and his staff kind of that nod, that go-ahead for that environmental study, if that can be done by grant?
I think if you can get a grant, then I don't see why not, doesn't.
Talk just really quickly about the two options, and would they have different, well, I'm assuming they'd have a different process for both of those two options that you mentioned with working with the BLM? You said they're,
Partnership or
Yeah, partnership or the
RMPP?
RPNP, yeah.
yeah, are they both the same process? Essentially, you'd have to still do the environmental study for
The
both?
environmental has to be done for both processes. One of the processes, it remains BLM property, and we help maintain the amenities on it, and the other one, it would become city property. So that's, I think, the biggest difference between the two options. The environmental has to be done regardless.
But you don't see them giving up the property, right?
They mentioned that as an option. The problem with that is we would have to do an environmental for the entire area, not just where the trails are. So it would be much more expensive, and then the city they've got full control of it, but they have to maintain completely everything on the property.
There was enough endangered species on that mountain, like plants, that they wouldn't entertain it
Yeah.
anymore.
So that particular plant, that sandpaper, is not a T&E species, so it's not threatened and endangered. It's just a sensitive, and so I think it's not as strict.
I know, it's just conversations we've had about water tanks and stuff on that hill, they kind of blew us off and did.
It might be tricky. There's the grazing allotment. There might be archaeological stuff too. That stuff's pretty sensitive. They didn't even share it with us, so.
I liked your term, Thomas, of a working plan. And then it seems like just, I was at most of those meetings. It seemed like the direction that most were leaning was partnership rather than RMPP, which I think makes sense. And maybe that also helps us with some of the maintenance and other things. So we'll just see how that goes. Anything else, council? Great. Thank you, Thomas.
Of course. Yeah.
Paul, you're going to be up here again, so don't get too comfortable. Next item on the agenda is the ball field concession building. The city council, along with some staff and some members of the community from the Little League and others, we met up at the ball fields by the community center and responded to some feedback for some improvements there. And so the council gave some directive to staff. And so Paul Walker, if you'll come and just present on the items that are in the packet and get the council's feedback on and directive on this particular item.
Can you show the stuff in the packet? Do you have that stuff? Just those floor plans. Thank you, Mayor. As you said,
Thanks, Trista, by the way. Did you have anything to add or just a thumbs up? Thank you. Thanks for being here.
So as you said, Mayor, we met at the current building. It's got some deficiencies, and kind of the consensus was that it's best to replace that building rather than to try and replace it. So the feedback we got, the three priorities were restrooms.
You're saying replace rather than repair?
Replace rather than repair.
Okay.
A whole new building. So the priorities we were given were restrooms, concession, and storage. So we came back with three options. We've got a smaller option, a mid-size option, and a large option, and they all kind of have a little bit of different features. Stephen Beasley is here from FFKR Architects if there's any questions for him, but it starts with the smallest building is 1,100 square feet, and it's got a smaller concession building, concession area.
What's the existing square foot of the bottom level? Do you remember?
The existing square footage is, I think, a third of this small building. It's like
Okay,
300 or 400 square feet, I want to say.
okay, thank you.
So you can see the layout. We have 6 restrooms and a storage room in this with concession. The larger size is really similar to this, but it's got some covered, the medium size has some covered area over the concessions. Other than that, the layout is pretty
I
similar.
think the dimensions were exactly the same because I looked at them
Oh,
for the inside of the building, but not the roof covering.
yeah.
You just extend that truss line
Yeah,
out
we're
on
just
that one.
extending it out. Yeah, the footprint on the east side stays the same, and we just elongate the building
Yeah.
to fill the space.
Building's still 1,100 square feet, but we have a shaded areas more on the sides.
Yeah, so this building will be a little bit longer, and then we add some shaded coverage.
Is that
for the-
shaded area on the south side?
It's on the east side.
Okay, so it changes the way it sits there?
Yeah, and this could go
It
either way.
rotates? Okay.
But the way the building and the utilities are now, it would probably work best for this to face the east
So
side.
the concession opening would face east?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Which that can be
That
determined,
gives you
but I
some
think
shade
that's-
from that westerly sun.
Yeah. And then Eldon, if you can go to the largest one, this one, we talked with maintenance and our recreational staff, and some of the feedback we got on the concessions is a larger concession area would be better. So this building has a larger concessions and just a little bit different style of covering over the concession area, and this one has a viewing deck on the second floor. So they're all different. They're all different sizes, all different.
City manager box up
features
there?
to it, Yeah.
Unruly dad.
Unruly dads.
Did you put
It might
together-
be unruly just to go up
So
there.
Paul, are we sure this can fit in the middle?
We have not done any civil engineering yet, but this footprint will fit in the spaces.
In the space, okay.
Yeah.
What about cost estimates for any of the three? Rough cost estimates?
Yeah, so we reached out to a couple of builders and just to get some estimates off of the plans. Again, this hasn't gone out to bid or anything, but the small building is approximately 500,000, maybe under 500,000. The middle building is more in the $500,000 to $600,000 range, and the larger building is in the $600,000 to $700,000 range.
That's really good information.
Yeah.
Silly's good.
So when I look at this, and you're just looking for feedback, right? So I'm gonna give you my feedback. I think the things we were after is we know the building's bad and we need to get restrooms, right? I like that it's the same footprint on the bottom besides some additional stuff. I like we have 6 bathrooms, we have a mechanical room, and then a little room for the Little League storage, which is fine. I feel like it's a small space, but maybe that's all they need. I don't know, for the maintenance of our Little Leagues. But in the concessions, I don't think we should put griddles. We shouldn't put that kind of stuff, like refrigerators and cabinets top. Because every time we put money into these things, they just don't get used. Like, we need counter space for people to put up their cookers or whatever they're gonna do. We don't need fryers.
Plug
we
in a
don't need that
microwave
stuff.
or a warmer.
But we do need fridges, right? So it makes sense to put some fridges in that are used, and then counter space to plug in their nacho warmer.
Which one are you on, Councilman?
They're all the same, pretty
Will
much.
you just pull up the floor plan?
We've got different size concession areas. This one, you
I'm
can see.
talking the smallest one.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm just looking at the smallest one.
So the smallest concession area would be sufficient.
Yeah, because I feel like, this is just my experience looking at these, is that they're always nice and it'd be great, but then they don't get ever used because no one wants to clean them or maintain them or deal with them. And if they want to grill, they can bring a barbecue or something that they pull out of the Little League storage for the couple hamburgers, right? Like, smaller in that nature. And then,
So if they're not getting used, why build them? I'm wondering.
no, I'm not saying, I'm saying don't put in a griddle. Don't build counter space. So, because they sell candy bars and stuff like that, and
Okay, I was just wondering, because I don't ever see it get used either, like at Sullivan or like, that never gets used at
just
all,
put in counter
as far as
space.
I'm aware of
Yeah,
anyways.
Sullivan.
It's always
The
closed
Little
down.
League, yes, but it's just really in poor shape right now. But at Sullivan, I haven't seen them used either.
Do you-
Better to have counter space to sell, and they can put their boxes of chips or boxes, but you got, have some fridges for the drinks to keep them cold and stuff like that, and to store it, because I know a lot of these leagues will like, hey, I have this shelf. I'm just recollecting from the high school, right? The concessions there, I had to work there a few times, and they have a fridge, and it's like, this shelf is football, this shelf is soccer, no one touch, like, and then they just have countertop, and plug in a microwave and you plug in your nacho warmer and, and then your Chick-fil-A sandwiches show up in a bag, right? So it's just kind of stuff like that. And it keeps it more simple and reduce some of the cost of that higher.
So I don't disagree with you, and that we don't necessarily need to put them in, but I think it's important to plan for it, and put the rough ends in so that you have the option. So, I mean, I would do that if it was.
You're talking like just the outlets or the
Just
amperage?
even if you just run a conduit for the power or run the gas in there.
That makes sense.
Just put the provisions there so you've got options down the road, right?
Just the way these buildings have been, like, I look at St. George City and how I went and looked at theirs and I've talked to some of them and they're like, yeah, we'd never use it.
Brett said he'd cook me a hamburger if there was a griddle.
Oh, but then who's gonna clean it? Because Brett's not gonna clean it.
I'll clean
I've done pancakes with all these guys, and I end up doing the pancakes while you're all busy. Just
foreman?
kidding.
So true.
There. I'm just saying, like, those are costs that I think we can help keep it down. But
Somebody's
I
gotta
never
do the
disagree
work.
with putting more conduit in a building, because you never know, right? Like, throw the conduit in, get that stuff.
So, hey, Paul, I got a couple of questions for you. Outside of the building, if you figure out what costs are gonna need to go into the site, you know, over and above the building for, you know,
Yeah.
infrastructure, pulling plumbing, asphalt, things like that.
Yeah, we've talked about, this is just for the building, no site plan, or no site changes. This will probably also need another $20,000 to $25,000 of civil engineering. This building where it will sit, we've got the irrigation lines that go through for irrigating the ball fields and getting utilities right and stuff. So there'll be another $25,000, $25,000 cost for that.
Power's over that building. isn't
Yeah.
it?
We're looking at, 700,000 for the nice building. Another 250, 300,000 bucks in the site to kind of get it prepped and ready to be able to do it. We're looking at $1 million project, right? Give or take.
Yeah, give or take.
If you do the
Yeah.
big one. Just,
Big one. I think, I mean, fairness, Steve, you could have made them all look similar, but the big one looks a lot nicer. I don't know on the big one, though, that I wouldn't just do the whole roof as a viewing deck. You know,
Pull up that large one, Eldon, if you don't mind.
The way the fields are laid out, 3 of them are very close to each other, and the 4th one is far away. So if we had the whole thing a viewing deck, you still wouldn't be close enough to that 4th field to really be able to see it very
well,
well.
but I mean, you're
But
gonna have
it
enough
would look-
people would want to watch the 3 that could see it fairly close. And I mean, this is a flat roof, right? So I kind of look at it and think, well, you know, which kid's gonna jump on top of the flat roof section? The next thing you go, you got a leak in your roof, right? I mean, it'll happen. So you just make the whole thing viewing deck, then it is what it is. That was just my thought on
And
that.
just state your name there again.
Yeah, Steve Beasley with FFKR.
Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Yeah, we would just have to find somewhere to put condensing units, right? Whether they're ground mounted and we try and screen them or mount them up high on a wall so kids can't get into them, but.
That's
yeah,
what it
we
is,
could
it's just
certainly make it
condensing
a-
units and mechanical stuff.
Yeah,
There's ways to, I guess you can put some sort of a gate or some sort over.
yeah. And we could definitely shrink that. The issue you run into with these upper balconies is if you exceed 750 square feet, you have to provide 2 exits. So then we're doing 2 stairs, stuff like that. Right now, I think we're at like 680 or something, but
All right,
something to consider.
well, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think this is a little bit more in line with what we talked about, right? I mean, I don't know that the concession stand needs to be as big, but
I don't really like the big one. I think ground level bathrooms, concession stands, plenty, in my opinion. But, I mean, I feel like if between 500,000 and $1 million, I'd rather stay around 500,000 on this one, but.
the only benefit that I see from the upper deck is, you know, when you got coaches or people that are with the scoring or things like that, they get a little bit better vantage point when they're trying to watch those games and you know, I don't know if you want to call it regulate them, but call them out, you know, things like that when you're calling to the different teams.
Feedback. Council, additional thoughts on these options?
So I'd like to just talk for a second about the medium option. I think that the shade that's provided there is very economical for the cost of the building, you know. It would be, I think it's important going forward to get those final numbers because there's not a huge range for the three. The bigger building it's really attractive and it has 2 stories and nice, very appealing. The middle one looks kind of like what we have now, but yet nice shade around it. I love the fact that we have the 6 bathrooms in all of them because I think that was probably the council's biggest concern. I look at the smallest one and I'm just not sure that one's enough for what we're trying to accomplish going forward because you see what happens on summer evenings. Those are packed and so I do like the idea of a little extra shade. For me personally, what I would like to focus on is the cost between the large and the medium to see if the value per money, because I do like elements of both those designs, but I do like the shade on the middle one. I like the concept of having some growth room for the larger one and having some space. The upper deck is just open. It looks like there's a handrail that's just open on the top. Is that correct?
That's right.
And you access it from an exterior stair. My only concern on that, and maybe this is the elementary teacher and the whatever, but you know, this area is a nice part of town, you know it is, but you're gonna have kids there when there's probably no adults around. I would just keep in mind that we need to build this with the idea that we need to make it kind of vandalism proof. Not that we have that problem in the city, but there's always maybe 1 or 2 from out of town that come in that might do
Well,
that.
yeah, people come in from other areas and
Or even safety.
Yeah.
Too,
and
not just
kids over the
vandalism.
rails, yeah, that's true. That's my thoughts, Mayor. I think that the bottom line, when you get the site plan, you get the dollars together. If it's negligible between medium and large, I can certainly have that conversation. I do think the small one is probably not quite enough for what we're looking for. And if we're gonna do it, we wanna do it right. We don't wanna have to redo it or feel like we underbuilt in another 5-6 years. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Steve, can I ask you a question? On the medium one there, you're not showing any condensing units on that,
So they're mounted up high on the wall.
are they?
Yeah. We
Well,
just have-
can we freshen the elevations up on it a little bit?
Yeah, so we wanted to give you budget friendly and then, hey, shoot for the stars, right?
Well, I don't know that we need to shoot for the stars, but I think you can freshen the elevation up
Yeah,
just a little bit, even if it's, just mixing it up a little bit.
Yeah, that's that condensing unit on the back on that top right picture.
Okay,
Anybody want a budget comment?
sure.
We not wanting to talk about it. So right now we've got, this would definitely need to be a wrap tax item. I think that's the only way we'd be able to fund it. We have about $1.7 million in our wrap tax fund right now. We get about $1 million a year is what we've been collecting in wrap tax the last couple of years. So you're looking at that range, and we have about just over $1 million worth of improvements or maintenance items that we feel are really necessary at the community center this year. Get a new pool liner, that's about $1 million purchase. And so you're looking at about $700,000 plus another $1 million that will go into it in the next budget year. So it might be instructive just to potentially just set a limit and say, look, this is how much we think we want to spend on this. And then maybe with the feedback that you've given to the architect and to Paul, they could come up with something that kind of fits within that.
Well, my feeling back years ago when they did that, let's set money aside for, improvement, hard improvements was specific, exactly for things like this, right? So even if you drew it down, it's because you're trying to do stuff like this that you wouldn't have an opportunity to do otherwise.
Absolutely. I think it's a really good use, just recognizing that we've talked about trails, there's just a lot of things. If we spend, if we go for the stars, or I can't remember what your comment was, we shoot for the moon on this one, that will be something else that we wouldn't be able to do.
What you're saying is with the money that's supposed to come in this year, there would be enough to do, both this and the improvements to the community center. Yes. You might keep those funds down, but then next year, there's still another $1 million to start bumping that back up. And this is gonna take a few months at least to kind of get pulled together.
One thing I'd love to see if, I mean, maybe just for me, from a budget standpoint, if you could give me a number to put in the budget, we could put that number.
What is, so you're saying we have 1.7 right now?
7, and I have $1 million that needs to go out. So we have about 700,000 and we'll add $1 million. So
We'll still have
1.7 is kind of the number of the number.
Are we anticipating any of the RAP funds to be used for our remodel of the Main Street Chapel?
Potentially some, but it's going to be minimal just because
Other funding?
of the ability to use them on that. It has to be recreation, arts, and parks, and so it limits what we can do with the chapel.
It'd be good to, Jeremy, have a discussion about the pool liner to say, is it at the end of its life? Is it
Oh, yeah.
failing?
No, just
To have a discussion about that before we start putting it in the budget for it.
I'll come forward to this group. I'm just letting you know what's out there.
I know, I mean, I'm just saying, like, just be good to know how.
Yeah.
Look,
Or
we're just
like a
wondering,
list, or like what, you said the pool liner, but did you also say that there's other items that are gonna be included in that 1 million that you're asking for?
There's always RAP tax things that the city needs, we need to take care of. Sometimes we've done, like we have some parks that need to have their play structures replaced and things like that. So that's what we use RAP tax for generally.
Eldon, can you pull up just the floor plan on the medium size? One thing that, so I was on the circuit with a softball player until she graduated and broke our hearts that she stopped playing. One thing that I've noticed at those ball fields that are really helpful is some place for storage. A lot of times there's a little ATV or something that can go in and drag the fields. And then also a place where you just keep some equipment and just, a little chalk bucket on wheels and a few things. And then also on those, when we get these tournaments coming through in Little League, it's nice for the umpires to have a little place to go. Sometimes you'll see a little, garage door go up or a little area. So I guess my question is, I mean, we still have those other restrooms, and we recognized when we were up there that we don't have lighting, but a lot of the games are played during the day. My question is, do we need the 6 restrooms, or could some of these also maybe potentially be area for storage and, umpire? I guess maybe that's a question for you, Stephen.
Yeah, I think you could convert some of those restrooms over to be larger storage. If you're trying to get an ATV or something like that, sometimes what we see cities do is they have a separate shed.
Or a golf cart or whatever, that pull
yeah.
but you've got 4 fields there you got to maintain and prep and, hoses and softballs and baseballs and stuff. It's just nice to have some storage.
Do you have any storage on site already?
Yeah, we've got an existing building that we keep
Is it the
our
building or is
equipment
it the Connex?
The Little League uses a Connex. The park
Okay.
has a building that they use. It's
Why can't I
got a couple
picture
roll-up
it?
doors. It's on the north side,
Oh,
close to the
okay.
Connex, yeah. And
Okay.
we keep our grooming equipment in there. This would be more for the Little League to use, custodial storage, things like that. This is a place that
Then
the
I would
umpires
just,
could
then
go.
my comment, if the storage is taken care of, then I do think it's nice for those umpires to have a little bit of area in between ball games. They work really hard. To have a little bit of a break between, but it's not the end of the world if they don't. But I'm just saying, do we need 6 restrooms?
Can I also ask a question? And maybe, I don't know who to ask this to, but I've been to a lot of different types of games, and we don't always have a concession. And so I'm just wondering, why is there a need for this? What if we get rid of the concessions and have more place where people can be out of the sun and gather and enjoy the games? Because the soccer games that I go to, the different, flag football games, there's not always concessions, and it's still enjoyable time with your family. And so I don't know why we need concessions myself.
Rule though that says you ought to be able to get a hot dog.
That is an unknown rule that I was unaware of.
But I think what I've seen a lot lately is an easy up and a grill and a cooler, and there's your.
I'd say baseball typically has concessions more than other sporting events. I agree with you, soccer doesn't have as much as, but every time I've been to a baseball game, there's a picnic table out there selling stuff, like, so to have a place, I get having a place, but in baseball, I see there's more concession than other type of events, is what I've seen. It's just, I don't know about, it's the way it's played, or I don't know what it is, but that's what I've seen.
Yes, if it's a rule, then
Well, there's
I
the song,
like-
buy me some, what is it? Peanuts and Cracker Jacks. Neither of those require, we're talking hot dogs and hamburgers, but I don't know.
I do like your idea of making it limited and small, not have, if we are going to do it.
You know, I'd like to comment just briefly on what Mayor said. I can see what you're saying, Mayor. I think that in most all scenarios, if you have 2 men, 2 women, or 2, 4 bathrooms total, that would feasibly probably be enough, but I don't know that it's a huge expense once the plumbing's there to add another bathroom. And you never know when one might get something flushed down at the plugs and you need an extra one that you can open and shut that one off until maintenance can come and look at it. But I think just the overall idea of the middle building, the bang for the buck kind of thing, it lends itself to me. I think it's kind of that good middle ground where Washington likes to be. We don't want to overspend, but we want to provide, again, you think of all the people there and you think about the uses that we have in our city. I doubt there's a place that's had greater memories than our ball fields, so anyway.
Something to think about. I like Councilman Coates, because if we put fryers and griddles and things in there, then we got to do the HVAC to go with it, which gets kind of spendy, and fire suppression and all that stuff. So, I mean, there's some good sense in kind of leaving it simple.
I like adding the shade, because we never have enough shade here in the town, so I like the median one. I don't hate the other one, I just hate the price, but.
Do you feel like we have enough storage with the mechanical room and the Little League storage? Do you feel like that gives enough space for the umpires, staff, council?
I would say that's not space for the umpires.
Do we just not have space for them?
I don't know. I don't know how that works. How much time do they need? Most of the time in all the events I go to, they're just under a shade tent off in a corner anyways, but I
We
haven't
can put a
been-
folding chair in there for them.
If you've got the covered area, don't they just mostly want to get out of the sun?
They want to be away from the fans.
They got to get away from
And they
the
and they
softball
and they
players' dad.
change, and they're there. Like I don't know, maybe I was a little too ingrained there. Maybe that mechanical room could, be used a little bit for some area there with a little bit wider door, and a little bit of access in for them to put some chairs and put their gear in there. And
Well, you can definitely use it's labeled as Little League storage, but we're not getting rid of the containers over there. That's going to be the Little League storage, right? Like, I would assume that would stay, because that's just their storage.
Yeah, I'm sure the Little League would like as much storage as they can get, but
But
where do we draw that line for them?
maybe that's a little bit of both, right?
Maybe we could consider a roll-up door on the mechanical room, just to try to be the best of both worlds if we do need to store a 4-wheeler or something. The width of the rooms looks, 7'4"? Oh, probably could get a roll-up door that could access that if it was, thought that it was.
You could always take a piece of the concessions if you wanted, if it's that important to get a little place away, but.
I like that idea, like a little roll up on the mechanical area, just so they have a little bit of room, a little bit of privacy if they need it.
They could go to the community center
The community center's not far. Truck up
or the library.
or the Connex
Probably need to push that mechanical room wider though.
or their truck.
I mean, you probably, right now you're at 7'4", you probably need to push it to 10 foot in order to make that happen.
What do you need the roll-up door for if we already have a building that takes care of our maintenance?
Or even just a wide door.
The
that get in and
mechanical
out there.
room's more for all the fixed stuff.
Yeah, we may be hesitant pulling a golf cart or something into that mechanical room because all the exposed fixtures and piping and stuff are in there.
Okay. Council list, does someone want to try to summarize? What I'm hearing is that we're leaning towards the middle, medium option. I guess my other question is this a RAP priority for the community? And is there just kind of a general direction that you want to give staff as a council and to Jeremy as he puts the budget together? And
I'd love to have even just doesn't have to be the final number, but just a placeholder. You're thinking 500,000-600,000, what is the?
Well, the problem is if the small is 5 and we're not on that, it has to be more, but I want to make sure we're covered on the stuff we need that we have to do, like the liner, so that's $1 million, and so my mind kind of ran to 750.
To be adjusted upward.
Yeah, that's kind of where I landed.
It's certainly a priority for me. I think it's well used by our residents, and it's been 30 years since it's earned a retirement.
After touring the building, I mean, it's borderline safety hazard over there, I would say, so.
I think we're there.
Yeah, I think it's a priority for me, but I would say,
do you like that medium option?
750.
Is that kind of where you're landing as medium option? Councilman Bellison, your thoughts?
I like the big one. Go big or go home. But that's just me. I mean, but I was up there, you're going to be 800 to $1 million on that project. And I think that's what was kind of in my head from the day that we were out there walking it was we're going to be right in that range. So
My concern is that we go too big and then it ends up being more than $1 million, right? Like sometimes I'm just trying to.
it goes.
My thing is we can say $1 million.
Paychecks.
No, but paid that much. So if we have to start taking that out of our employees' pays, that's my concern is that if we say, okay, it's $1 million and then we do all this stuff and it comes back at 1.2, it's like, so I'd rather err a little short and if something. Well, that's my concern.
We tend to have budget creep more than we have anything else. If you kind of give us a number, we may have to value engineer to keep stuff below that, but that would give us something to shoot for.
Councilman Casperson, then Councilman Ivy.
I would say the mid-range, 600,000.
It's a priority, and I like the middle model. It gives us a little bit of a buffer. If it does go higher, we're still.
Shoot for 600,000. Does that give you even enough to do the tie into the sewer lines and all the other utility?
I think it gives us a rough budget number, and then if we have to come back and talk specifics once it's bid out, we certainly can do that. But that helps it from becoming, so we just divide up.
2 that want 6, 2 that want 750, and 1 that wants $1 million. It sounds like we're going to hit in the middle. So is it 700? Like, I don't think 600 is enough with all the site improvements we have to do.
700, okay? Can we do it for 7?
750.
I feel like I'm in an auction now.
700.
Stephen.
I think when you get all the site work in there, you're probably over 7. Yeah, for the middle one. Like you're saying, 750 is probably closer to.
It's over 7 with.
He said originally 7, so let's go with 7.
Let's go 7. I'll flip a
Shoot
coin
for
it.
7.
Shoot for 7.
Fair?
Sounds like Paul's not getting that extra vacation this year.
He doesn't even go on vacation.
You know what?
I really like the options, and I appreciate that we looked at options and pricing but thank you, Paul, and thank you, Steve, for this.
And council, thank you. This is good work. Appreciated the site visit, appreciated the feedback and doing your job up here. So well done. That is the last item on the workshop agenda for tonight. So before I call for a motion to adjourn, I'll just make note that we'll reconvene at 6 o'clock for our regular meeting. And I don't anticipate that being long this evening. So council, I'll turn to you for a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Have a motion by Councilman Belliston.
Second.
Second by Councilman Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor? We're adjourned. with our regular meeting. Today is Wednesday, February 11th, 2026. We're in the council chamber at Washington City Hall. Our meetings are streamed live at washingtoncity.org/meetings and also archived for later viewing. Our city manager, Jeremy Redd, will offer the invocation this evening, and Lieutenant Finona will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after that. Mr. Redd.
Our Heavenly Father, we're thankful tonight to be gathered here in this city council meeting. We're thankful for the blessings that we enjoy, for the favorable circumstances that we have to gather tonight. Father, we're thankful for our country, for our state, and especially our city of Washington. We're thankful for the people who work and serve and take care of our great community. At this point, Father, we ask a blessing to be upon us. Please help us to have more rain and snow in our mountains, that we may be able to fill our reservoirs and have a productive summer this year. We ask for thy blessings to be upon the leaders that will make decisions here tonight and those who will present, that they may make decisions that are in the best interests of our community. Again, we pray for these things and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
We do need to go to closed session this evening for pending or potential litigation. And thank you, Lieutenant Finona and City Manager Redd. That said, I will call for a motion to approve the agenda as outlined.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Coates, second by Councilman Belliston. All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Announcements. Monday, February 16th is President's Day. The city offices will be closed, but our fire department will be working. Tuesday, February 17th is the Dixie Regional Transportation Expo. That is at the Dixie Center from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Is there anything I may have missed, Council, between now and our next council meeting on the 25th? Okay, next item on the agenda is declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Anything to declare? Hearing none, we'll move to the next item, consent agenda. This consists of the approval of the minutes from the city council meeting of 1/28/26 and consideration to approve the board audit report from January 2026.
Mayor, I have reviewed the minutes and the board audit report. It looked to be in order to me, so I can make that motion to approve the consent agenda as it's outlined.
You've heard the motion by Councilman Ivey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Belliston. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is a presentation of the audited Washington City financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2025. Chad Atkinson with Squire will present. Mr. Atkinson.
All right, mayors, members of the council, it's good to be with you this evening. Before we get started, just wanted to announce officially that Hinton Burdick, the former CPA firm here in St. George or the surrounding area, joined forces with Squire and Company officially on January 1st, 2026. So that's why we're having a presentation by Squire and Company tonight. So we now have offices in Orem, Salt Lake, and St. George. So happy to be part of the new organization. And for the most part, as far as auditing services go for the city, things will continue as usual. I'm still the engagement partner. We still have the same personnel working with me, just a different name. So any questions about that before I get started? Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I wish it meant a pay increase, but I don't think it did. So just a merger of two great firms. So first of all, I'd like to start with just a couple of thank yous to city staff. This has been an unusual year for the audit in terms of switching softwares. Pepper and Brian have been logging some overtime to make everything happen with the new software, so we appreciate their efforts, especially this year. We worked really well together. I think communication went really well between the auditors and the city, given the added workload with kind of transitioning everything. We communicated well. We were able to wrap it up as quickly as the city could move through that transition with the software. So we're thankful for that and exchange of information and everything else. So as I go along tonight, there may be some time where we need some management insight. So certainly welcome that as I go. Wanted to encourage the council and mayor to review the management's discussion and analysis, which is in the beginning of the document. That's a good summary of the year's activity for fiscal year 2025. I'll go over the audit reports and findings and then some financial highlights. And I've changed the presentation a little bit from previous years. Hopefully it's an upgrade. A couple of things that we did that in fiscal year 25 that were, well, just one more thing to mention. We converted the city's, we helped them to apply governmental accounting standard number 101 on compensated absences. So this has to do with promised leave that is paid to employees, and went through all the analysis with that with city staff, had some exchanges back and forth, and helped the city to successfully implement that. So that can be found also, a disclosure on that in the notes to the financial statements. Okay, so I'm going to go over, you should have received in your package a governance letter. That governance letter is just it's a standard required communication to the governing body, which is the city council and the mayor. There were no problems or issues in that standard communication, and if you have any questions about that, you're certainly happy to reach out to me and I can answer anything about that. The independent auditor's report is on page 1 in your financial statements. We issued an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements as expected. The report on internal control over financial reporting, that's on page 85. And we're happy to report that there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies noted that were pervasive to the city. So that's a complimentary thing for city manager, city finance office, everybody that's involved in the processes of the city are doing a good job. So we appreciate that. And then finally, our report on compliance is on page 87 in your document. We issued an unmodified or clean opinion on state compliance. We didn't come across any non-compliance issues in our work. So any questions to that point? Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go into just a few financial highlights. If you wanted to review just the operational changes from fiscal year 24 to 25 to see the revenues and expenditures for your governmental funds, you would refer to page 20. That has the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. Proprietary funds are on page 24. Again, the same thing there, revenues, expenditures, and changes in net position. I'm not going to go into the details of that tonight, as this is meant to be a high-level review, but I will hit a couple of things as it pertains to fund balances and net position. And that's on these following slides. What this is meant to do is to take a 5-year look at your fund balances in your major funds and to just see where you're at a point in time. Might be a little bit small on the screens. I hope that you can see this okay. But over the last 5 years, to see whether your fund balance is growing, if it's going down, if projects are affecting it, that kind of thing. So this first one is the general fund. Just a couple of things here. The total fund balance for the general fund is at $15.3 million. The unassigned fund balance is currently at $8.2 million, and that's about 6 months of reserves on hand for the city. The absolute bare minimum that you should have in a city's general fund is 2 months, so you're currently at 6, which is great. The restricted funds, as you can see on this graph, are at $6.3 million. That's set aside for Class C road and transit. Those are specific revenues that come into the city's general fund that have to be spent on roads and transit, so those are restricted. Then there's a little bit of assigned fund balance. This is set aside for the health premium rebate. And then finally, your final number here is your non-spendable, which is money that's already been spent to purchase inventory. So that's where you're at the end of fiscal year 2025.
Chad, on our fund balance, historically, we've talked about a percentage. Do you know what our fund balance percentage is at that roughly 15 million? Does that put us? I know there's been some differences of
I
opinion.
just did the math. It was like 11, 12%.
Okay.
12%, yeah.
So I know at one point, the legislature at one point didn't want it to be over 15% or 20%, so 11 or 12 is about right.
It's a little more complicated than that because it's your unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of next year's general fund. And so it's what Brian will get you the number. He knows. He told me today.
And you can even get that to me later, Brian. There's no rush. You don't need a calculator now.
It's higher than 11. It's 20, 23. The max is 35 that the state.
Okay, so that's changed over the years. Max is 35, we're around 23. Good enough.
There is a bill talking about dropping it again this year. Senator McKay has another bill, but they moved that percentage around.
Yeah. The point, I think, is the municipal government extension of the state, the funds are to be used for the benefit of the residents, correct?
Yes, you don't want to get it too high, or there's a top end of that where you'll get a finding.
Sounds like we're right in the sweet spot. All right.
Okay, thanks for the questions. Next slide we've got is the Capital Project Streets Fund. This was a major fund during fiscal year 25. Fund balance went down just a little bit, 906,000. And at the end of the year, it's at 16.1 million in restricted funds. This capital project fund obviously varies depending on the capital projects and the use of that money. So no major issues here. And we're going to hit the water fund for a moment. All of these funds, by the way, there were no budgetary findings, but all of these funds operated in their approved budgets. And for the water fund, the change in net position or the net income for this fund was at 18.4 million, but it's important to point out that 11 million of that was donated infrastructure. So developers are constructing this infrastructure and then handing that over to the city to maintain. So the net investment in capital assets is your top number here. It's a little over 83 million. And this is up mostly due to the donation of these capital projects, right? For the water fund, the things that are there to serve the water residents, those were donated to the city, so that bumps that number up. Some of the major improvements were the Long Valley tank and booster pump, and then, as I mentioned, donated infrastructure.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Why do we calculate the asset value?
In the proprietary funds, they want you to keep track of not only the operations, but also the capital assets that are involved in delivering the services. So that's why they're on the balance sheet, that you can see everything that's involved to deliver the service. So,
Isn't that usually a function of being taxed? Like I have to show my assets for, tax purposes, but the city doesn't pay taxes. So I'm just curious why a city shows that.
Yeah, it's the standards that we follow. It's a typical balance sheet for a business.
We accountants do it.
Yeah, that's how the accountants do it. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So how can you tell which fund is is it just by the numbers you guess? Because it doesn't really say whether this is like the infrastructure or cash.
How can you tell the difference between the funds? Okay, so we just went over the governmental funds, and so those do not have assets included. And now we're switching over to the business type funds, they call them.
Yep.
And so
Enterprise.
you'll see a number on here for each of these funds that has to do with capital assets. And that's just the bricks, mortar, lines, whatever is needed to deliver the service. And that increases by additions to the infrastructure, and then it also goes down depending on if the infrastructure gets old and depreciates, then it will go down. And it also includes any debt that's associated with that. So that's why that top number can kind of fluctuate. In the case of the city's in great shape because you're getting a lot of infrastructure donated and building the system out, and you have the opportunity to deliver to more residents. So you'll see the numbers look great on all of these funds. Does that help?
Yeah.
A little bit? Okay. All right, let's go to the sewer fund. You'll have a similar trend here. The net investment in capital assets is $45.7 million. And there were donations in this fund as well. The donated infrastructure was $5.6 million for the year, including the Washington Field sewer trunk line and other improvements. The restricted net position or restricted funds that are set aside here are at $6.1 million, and that is unspent impact fees that are on hand. You can see it went up from the previous year. And then your final number here is your unrestricted, and, excuse me, I think I got that mixed up. Nope. I have to put my glasses on to see here. I'm sorry, I've got the restricted mixed up here. So the restricted is your bottom number there, a little over $1 million in unspent impact fees. And then the unrestricted was increased from the previous year. That's at $6.1 million. And that's 24 months of reserves on hand. So pretty good shape in the sewer fund. Okay, electric fund. The electric fund, its net investment in capital assets is $42.4 million, that top number. This fund increased its net income for the year was $10.6 million, and 6.2 of that was donated infrastructure. The restricted is consistent with the previous year. It's at $397,000, and that is set aside for debt service reserves that are required by the lenders. And then your unrestricted was up $2.4 million from 17.4 to 19.8, and that's 12 months of reserves on hand in the electric fund. Okay, hopefully this is helpful, and you're certainly welcome to review these and then ask questions later. I can answer any questions later or via email. The storm drain fund, it operated within its approved budget. The change in net position in this fund, or the net income, was $4.8 million, and $4.4 million of that was donated infrastructure. So the net investment in capital assets was a little over $32 million in this fund. The restricted was consistent with the prior years. There's $2.4 million in unspent impact fees in this fund. And then the unrestricted was down just a little bit from the previous year at $436,000 down, and it has 11 months of reserves on hand in the storm drain fund. And then this final slide is just cash over a period of time. Cash will go up and down depending on capital projects and other major spends by the city and uses. So governmental cash was down just a little bit, $760,000 from the previous year, and business type cash was up. Overall cash was up $5.1 million. So financial trends seem to be northeast trending for the city. So congratulations on that. That means you have a responsibility or opportunity to use those funds for the future of the city. So appreciate the opportunity to present tonight. I've got my contact information on here, updated email address. I also wanted to give a shout out to Victoria for being just a faithful, steady part of the city's audit for the past, I think, 3 or 4, maybe 5 years. She's been doing a great job, and appreciate her assistance and the team getting this done. So any questions that I can?
Yeah, I have a couple, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I don't know if you'd call this an anomaly or a trend, but it seems like a lot of our budgets that are listed here kind of bottomed out in fiscal year '23. Have you noticed that?
23, and I don't know that I have the
I just wonder
history
if-
on hand.
Because this was after COVID. I can't think of what would have. It's all right. I just wanted to point it out that on several of them, fiscal year '23, they kind of bottomed and they've been coming up ever since. So
Yeah.
if you don't have that, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but that's something that caught my eye. And then would you just talk for a second about the effectiveness of our internal controls? Kind of list what those are and how they work, because we have a lot of residents that'll be listening to tonight's council meeting at home, and they might want to have some idea of what those look like and what they're for.
Okay, so each year we review the process for major financial processes within the city. We review any changes to those processes, and then we also perform walkthroughs of those processes. So we understand the process with the client. We work with staff to understand any changes that are happening there. And then we go through and actually walk a transaction through to make sure that it goes from the origin of the transaction all the way through to the financial statements and where it's reported, to make sure it's classified correctly, it's in the correct period, all of those assertions that, as we give an audit opinion on based on assertions that things are accurate, complete, classified in the right spot, in the right period, all of those assertions happen. So the internal controls are really key to that and making sure that they're flowing correctly. And
So internal controls aren't just to make sure that there's like any fraud or anything like that. They're not just for that. They're actually to make sure that money's recorded where it needs to be so that we have an accurate picture and that it's processed properly.
Yes, primarily that's what they're for, is correct financial reporting. Can they be used to catch fraud or errors? Yes, they could be used for that as well. That's not their primary purpose, but that could be a part of an internal control process, sorry. So that's all part of a good working system within the city.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions, Councilman? Any additional questions, Council? Thank you, Chad.
Okay.
I like that we're trending northwest. A lot of capital projects, a lot of fiscal discipline, good internal controls. Brian, you and your staff do a great job. Appreciate you. And Jeremy, thanks for overseeing what they do. Anything you'd like to add, Mr. Red?
Yeah, that's the comment I would make. Switching to a new accounting software has been a major obstacle and challenge for the finance department, and Brian and his team have just done a tremendous job. And this is his chance to get his kudos and his, take a bow, but to go, and this is, I think, at least the third year in a row that he's done that without finding, which, sometimes things pop up, but just they run a really clean shop over there, and it's a great department, so we appreciate them.
Thank you, Brian. It's exactly what we expect. Keep it up.
Thanks to one of the officers for the city, I had the opportunity to test the controls at the clerk's office upstairs, the justice court. So I got to do cash receipting and observe that. So I want you to know that, okay? So they are working as planned.
Paid in pennies? Did you bring pennies to pay your?
No, I did not bring pennies, but
That's good.
that would have been good. So I personally observed it myself this year, so.
Point well made.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Chad. Our finest Washington City resident and auditor. Next item on the agenda is a resolution consideration to approve a resolution approving the settlement agreement between Michael J. Hall, Penny Hall, and Mike's Welding, Inc., the Halls, and Washington City. We go from a CPA to an attorney. Mr. Segmiller.
Thank you, Mayor. My voice is not super strong yet after a weekend illness last weekend, but you all have been advised of this matter as it's come along. This settlement agreement results from a notice of claim filed by attorneys for Mike's Welding and Mike and his wife. It proposes that the settlement amount be $22,895. The settlement discussions indicated that amount would be used to retrofit the front yard and the driveways so that they're more accessible to future commercial traffic and use. And I would suggest that that's a good investment for Washington City. That is a busy corner. It's a spot where better driveways will benefit both the landowner as well as those that use it and those that drive by. And so with that, I present to you any questions you might have about the matter or the resolution.
Council, the resolution's in your packet. You're aware of the item. Any discussion on this, or someone ready to make a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion. We approve item 6A for the settlement between the Hall and Washington City.
You've heard the motion by Councilman Coates for the settlement of $22,895. Is there a second?
Second that, Mayor.
Second by Councilman Henderson. Let's go roll call vote, beginning with Councilmember Belliston.
I think it's important to note that we've all been through this a couple of times already. So yeah, Bellis and I.
Henderson, Coates,
Aye.
Ivy, Casperson.
And Mayor, I may just mention for the public that the city council's met with me in closed session at least 3 prior times to discuss the details of this. And so it's not being rushed through tonight. Tonight's just the formality of finalizing the document. Thank you, council, for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Segmiller. A report of officers from assigned committees, beginning on my left, Councilmember Belliston.
The Flood Control Authority has a new chairman. Threw me under the bus the other day, and so I now head that one up.
Congratulations.
And I want to state that we had our first nay vote ever, and can you guess who it was from?
One of you two.
It wasn't from me, and he said nay to himself. He didn't even want the job, but
I made my
I made my claim. I'm already a chairman on one board. I don't need to be on two. And then the other two fought it out, and Belliston won.
Well, I love to see that leadership from this elected body. Tell us a little more about it, Councilman.
Well, so Flood Control Authority, as you know, governs any waterway that goes through multiple cities within the county, and it allows us to seek larger funds and grants from, bigger entities to where the cost match is at least 4 to 1, sometimes up to 10 to 1, where we've got other entities sending money to our county and cover those costs. And it's mitigation up and down the waterways to keep them clean. So when we do have a flood event, we don't have the massive backup of debris and whatnot. The other day, we spent the day kind of going through a refresher because we had a couple of new board members, and so it was more of kind of bringing them up to speed about what's been going on. And last fall, I sent, I believe I sent it to the council on an ACE report of one of the cleaning crews that comes in and does that. And those are usually a 50-50 match, where they'll come in and volunteer their hard work to clean debris out. So anyway, it's actually a fun community.
One thing that I can jump in, Councilman, is I think with some of the federal funding going away, that ACE crew is becoming more available. So I think they had a need, and we wanted to get more area cleaned up, so we said yes, and they got on it. So they'll continue to clean the rivers and stuff as much as they can, but we have more rivers to clean than we can clean with all the invasive species that have been brought. One of the ones that was interesting was the Phragmite that's coming that you see. It looks like a cattail.
Yeah, that one's an invasive.
Invasive.
That's been taken over.
But
But similar to the salt cedar in the fact that it's not from the area and it's a real problem.
it chokes off the river. So it's definitely, we've got to take care of these rivers, but it is interesting to see how they do change with just, I think, growth around too.
You remember in the 05 flood coming down Santa Clara River and whatnot, I mean, there was huge trees that were coming down, and there was at one point, they had a track hole on the bridge just pushing them down as they were to go under the bridge. They had an 80-foot tree come through, full canopy, that was coming down the river that they had to use a track hoe to get underneath. But now they go through and they cut those up in 1-2 foot sections, so they're not a problem, and they don't dam up and back everything up and destroy houses and infrastructure and things like that. So.
Well, great, congratulations. Keep those waterways clear.
Yep.
Anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
And we probably missed miss Mayor Rosenberg and his many years of service there, I imagine.
He's still showing up to him in his role as an engineer, so we're not losing his lead.
Yeah, he's still there. It's just now he doesn't get a vote sometimes.
Yep, he's not a voting member anymore. And then Santa Clara, Mark Hendrickson's now on that board.
Oh, that's
so he
good.
took over for Councilman Shakespeare.
And then we see Mayor Rosenberg at the Water District still too, which is good. So good to have that experience involved still. Councilman Henderson.
Thad and I had a good meeting with the Shade Tree Committee this afternoon, and the guys at the Parks Department won an award that we found out about today. So I want to read that to you. This award is from the Utah Community Forest Council, and Washington City is the 2025 Community of the Year. And so I took a picture of the plaque, and I'll just read it. It says, Washington City exemplifies leadership in water-wise urban forestry under certified arborist Paul Walker, who presented at the Utah Municipal Forestry Fall Workshop and led a tour of 2 innovative parks. The city employs 2 ISA certified arborists and requires arboriculture training for all full-time parks and recreation staff. An active tree board further strengthens planning and implementation of resilient, attractive public spaces. Site highlights: the Boilers Park, built around a natural warm spring. This park showcases elegant water-wise design. Desert-adapted trees provide shade and structure. Plantings minimize irrigation needs, and the layout balances recreation with sustainability. It demonstrates how smart species selection and irrigation design create cool, usable spaces in a water-constrained landscape while preserving a unique desert oasis. Excuse me. The other one is Grapevine Trailhead. Serving as a gateway to Red Cliffs National Conservation Area, the scenic trailhead integrates drought-tolerant trees and native understory to provide shade, improve comfort, and model sustainable planting practices. It supports recreation and habitat while conserving water, ensuring long-term community benefit. Washington City's professional staffing, active governance, and innovative drought-resilient projects make it a standout candidate. So congratulations to Paul and the whole crew over there. Good job. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. That's awesome. Councilman Coates.
Yeah, we had our Washington County Solid Waste meeting on Monday. Basically regular business, but I think some things to note is that it's running pretty efficiently. A couple weeks ago, we talked about the batteries, brought that up, recycling batteries. One of the things they're gonna start doing is printing it on the garbage can that says no batteries as well. So any new garbage cans that go out will have that reminder information on it. So you might see a little change there. They finished the landscaping up front to make it look a little better, but it's pretty much standard business. So not too much to report.
Can you also share a little bit about the geofencing with the drivers?
That's a good thing. So based on our discussion last time with the concerns from the residents about Country Way, I reached out to Republic to say, hey, what are you doing on your end to mitigate your truck? Because in our contract, they're not supposed to send garbage trucks down that unless they're doing garbage for that area. So they actually, and I didn't know they were doing this, but they're putting a geofence around Country Way, and the drivers get flagged if they're driving down it, and they're not supposed to per their route. Because their routes are GPSed where they're supposed to go, and they specifically reroute them around except a few trucks. Now, we can't control the other dumps, and we can't, but we are doing our part on that. And I didn't realize they were doing that, so I appreciate that they're doing that and sending them the right direction and making their drivers go on the roads that we allocated. So it was kind of interesting. Now, they admitted it just flags it if someone drives the wrong way, but it does affect that driver's route, like, I don't know, their performance review or something if they're going the wrong ways and stuff. But I think they have been doing their part to keep because I think a lot of the garbage can truck traffic could get worse. I think they would go that way to go to Back's Way of Hurricane and stuff like that, but they are forcing them down Telegraph.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Councilman Ivy.
Yes, Mayor, I'm going to start my report. David, do you have that video ready to go?
I do. 2 seconds.
Thank you. So I'm just going to let this run, and then we'll explain what it is after. That's okay, David. Can you pause it right there? Thank you. So we'll leave that screen up. The gentleman at the piano is our Attorney General, Derek Brown, and the lady to the left is his wife. She was a D'Al Azevedo, and she's leading the music and helping out. That is our youth council. The night that we arrived for our capital trip, we went to the Attorney General's home, and we had ice cream and a good time with, you can see the young man on the right of our Attorney General with the, I'm not sure what that instrument is, trombone. But this is how we started our trip off to our capital trip. This was a great experience for these kids. I'm sure that they'll never forget it, but my report tonight, Mayor, is just about our capital trip, and I just want to kind of go down and just kind of discuss what we did there. This was a great, we call it a jam session, but you can see that the kids were engaged and really felt right at home in there. And to see an Attorney General, I doubt there's another Attorney General in the entire United States that would take that time to spend with our kids and to be so warm and inviting and open with them. So we really appreciate them. The next morning, we had breakfast with a lobbyist firm, and the kids were able to ask questions, and we had breakfast there early in the morning, and was able to have a really good conversation. Then after that, we went to the Capitol, where we found an empty room and was able to have a mock bill running. And you'll notice that our Council Segmiller's daughter's on the right of the screen up there with the Segmiller blonde hair. And she was one of 5 or 6 of our youth council that were acting as legislators. Then we divided up the rest in the teams that were for the bill and against the bill. And the topic was an actual bill that ran a few years ago, was on whether your children should be vaccinated or not. And so we kind of lined them up a little bit and talked about the process. And the kids really engaged that. And they really, I think, learned. Jordan set that up. We appreciate all that Jordan did on this trip as well. But he gave them the documents, and we both kind of went around and told them what the process and had that discussion. Then after that, we went to committee discussions where we listened to higher ed and criminal justice appropriations. And then after the latter, Senator Owens stayed and visited with our youth council and asked questions and talked, had a really good open conversation. He's a good man and took some time with the kids, and I think they really enjoyed that. They asked him some some really pertinent questions. And then after that, each one of our youth council members were able to sit on the floor with, in the House with our great legislators, you know, with Colin Jack and Joey LaSun and Brooks and Walter. They're really good representatives. They're proactive and they're engaged and they're informed, and I feel like we're very well served by them. Then we were able to meet with the Lieutenant Governor in the Gold Room, and the kids really enjoyed that. They got some pictures taken and asked some really fun questions and kind of hard questions, and the Lieutenant Governor told them that Washington's one of her favorite places because she has a daughter that lives here and she gets down here all the time and she loves to be here. And then the last thing, we were able to meet with our Sunshine Caucus, the same legislators I just mentioned, and ask questions there. But I just wanted to reach out, or just to say over the airways tonight how proud I am of, you know, Tess did a great job. Michelle, they're just great leaders. Jordan took a lot of time to set up a really nice trip, and kudos to Annie Simpkins. That's just a wonderful youth council leader. She puts her heart and soul into it, and I'm pretty sure that that these kids will never forget this experience. You know, I texted the Attorney General after, and I just said, you give them an experience tonight that they'll never forget, and I truly believe that. It's something that, for these kids to see on a very fundamental level, what makes our country go, what makes our state go, how the city gets their authority and how we work, I think is invaluable. We have one youth council member that has already left high school, and he's acting as an intern with a representative, Ellison, and he actually was there helping the youth council back and forth off the floor. We also have a great mayor in the youth council. Mayor Brown is now considering that field. But I think the star of the event tonight, and I certainly don't want to embarrass her because she's been quite quiet, but Thad's daughter really shown some depth of thought, and maybe it's the upbringing that she's had with an attorney father, but she asked some really good questions, and it seemed like that she really enjoyed that, and maybe there's a future there that she'll grab a hold of. But I know I took longer than usual, Mayor, but I wanted to share that. We have a great youth council. They represented our city so well. They were dressed nice in their jackets, and they represented the city very well, and it was a pleasure to be with them. And again, appreciate Jordan and Annie and Michelle and Tess for their time that it took for this trip, because I think it was well worth it.
Well said. Thank you, Councilman. I understand the city manager even made an appearance up there too, and then peeled off for some other meetings. Councilwoman Casperson. Neither do I. We'll go to city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Eldon, can you switch it so I can? As is the tradition, I have my yearly Washington City Management Report. I think I'd like to go over just a few things. I think there are some interesting things here. If I was going to pick a word for 2025, the word I would probably use for our city is steady. I think it was a steady year for the city. We saw a lot of really similar numbers to the year before. One thing I want you to look at on the bottom left there on this graph, I changed this up a little bit. This shows our property tax compared to our neighbors in the county. And what I added this year is I put including fire. So I took any of those areas that are covered by a fire district and I added their additional property tax, just so you can see Washington City is just barely above New Harmony as the second lowest property taxed city in the county. And we're just lower than St. George. And Washington and St. George do not have fire districts that represent them. Most of the others do. And you can see, you know, compared to a Tokerville or a La Verkin or a Hurricane, we're half to a third of the property tax that they would pay for a similar size residence. Just a different way of looking at things and how you provide those services. Our service population, we talk about, that's the population that we serve when everyone's here and using the second homes and vacation rentals, but We're right around 48,000 at this point, so the city continues to grow about 2,500 residents a year, and that's been pretty steady for the last little while. I think we do that with a pretty conservative approach. You can see our full-time equivalents is what FTE is. You take all of the staff hours and divide that into full-time, and we had 2 extra staff members to take care of those additional 2,500 residents, and that is up to 344 total. Residential building permits you saw was up by about 40 from the year before. Sales tax per person's up slightly. Everything else is pretty steady. Community center, 444,000 plus visitors to the community center is pretty amazing for how much that center gets used.
Jeremy, how do you track that?
They track it because they count every person that comes in, either pays or they
Not does, because sometimes you have ball games and people just come in, so there's always the Saturday events too that we're not tracking as well.
There's probably more. There's probably a lot that we're not catching, but you can see police calls for service was up. Response times are down slightly, but the response times for both police and fire are staying in those acceptable ranges. One thing that we added this year, we added miles of trails. You can see we added 4 miles of trails, but the city's up to 36 miles of trails, which is a quite impressive number. 217 acres of parks. We added 15 acres in this year of new parks. So I think it's kind of neat because all of this stuff happens in the course of a year and you don't always see it until you sit down and track it like this. And we've been doing this for quite a few years. Page 2, the back page. Again, we had a list of accomplishments that was 3 times this long, but I cut it back just to sort of the main highlights. So there are more, but finishing the Canal Trail, finishing the George Washington Plaza, we removed 12,000 square feet of sod. Our community development building departments are now fully staffed and exceeding the plan review deadlines that the state sets out. We issued building permits for the ARA Southwest Logistics Center. The new accounting system that we talked about, the Main Street Exit 12 opened. We did a major water line replacement project on the north end of town and the medians in Washington Parkway. And then you can see the city goals that we have for 2026 include, again, more trails, more parks, another power substation and power lines, updating city land use ordinances, some new water tanks. There's just a lot going on in every department, and you all see that, but it's really nice to see it kind of in a larger format here. The other thing that's kind of interesting to look at is in these graphs here, of all the things that the city does, only 27%, 28% is general fund. The rest are the business type activities that the city runs with the water, sewer, power, electricity, all that. And then you can see in the bottom one, the thing that stands out to me is only 16% of the revenue that the city collects is in taxes. And so we've been really conservative that way, but we're able to run a lot of our city with other revenue sources rather than just relying on taxes for our residents. But I think another successful year, a steady year for the city. I don't know if you have any questions, but this goes up on our website. You have many years worth of these reports that you can go back and compare how things are going compared to how they've been in the past. But that's my report, Mayor, unless you have any questions, anybody?
Well done, Jeremy. This is excellent information and really a testament to the leadership here in the city and the efforts that are made by everyone. Council, any questions for the city manager on this report or comments about this? Seeing none, we do have need to go to closed session for pending or potential litigation. I'll call for a motion to that end, and then we'll do a roll call vote.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Belliston, a second by Councilman Coates. We'll begin roll call with Councilmember Henderson. Aye. Coates.
Aye.
Ivy. Casperson. Belliston. Aye. We will move into closed session. Thank you.